Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another hard world matchup. I love being on these world maps, and we've got a great Division 4A matchup between Paschtetli and Lunacy. How are you doing, Calamity?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty great. And yeah, we're going to look at two players who definitely can do well on a world map as we take a look at their stats. Both of them have almost or near or an actual perfect game in the past. That's how you talk. But both of them find themselves sort of middle of the table. Lunacy just outside of promotion and Paschtetli just outside of relegation at the moment.
Yeah, it's important to note though how there is actually quite a big points gap between them. The top
Mm.
four, I think, of the division have created a bit of a gap between them and the rest of the field. So even though they're only 3 positions apart and pretty close in terms of aces, and even the average points is not too far apart, there is actually a sizable gap. So Paschtetli, if he still has any ambitions of promotion, then would really need a win here. Looking at the record is actually pretty interesting. I think Paschtetli started with 3 draws, but
Mm.
since then he's had a win and 2 losses. And Lunacy 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. So they've had the same amount of losses, but just the games that weren't lost were a bit more in favor for Lunacy, which could point to just the fact that he may have gotten a bit luckier with matchups.
Mm.
And just, whenever he's had a good game, his opponents didn't put up quite as much of a fight as Paschetli's opponents did.
I think Paschetli was like on single digit score difference after 3 weeks. So he was just really on the wrong side of things quite a bit, just getting lots of draws in that. Well, let's take a look at the map in a little bit more detail. It is by Alloc, average score of just under 14,000. Plenty of locations, 4,800 of them, 200 per hard country, according to Alloc at least, Calamity, of the 24 most difficult countries in Geoguessr.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I said this in the show, but I'm not entirely sure whether the locations themselves have also been chosen in difficult places. I mean, the map description says they've been randomly generated, but from playing through it, it doesn't feel like they've just could be anywhere in the world or like anywhere in the country. It feels
Mm.
like most of them have been chosen in a difficult location to get even beyond just the country being a difficult country in general. But maybe I've just also had too small of a sample size for that. We'll
Mm.
see.
We'll see indeed. Any guesses as to who might come out on top on this one?
This is a difficult one to predict, I think. Of course, Lunacy has had a bit of a better season so far, and just looking at past seasons, that would sort of correlate to just a little bit of a better player. But on a hard world, things can come down to such minute details and also just to which countries we get presented with today. You could just, as we had it in a recent game with Penguin and Soundbite, you could have 4 rounds in relatively smaller countries, and then 1 round at the end that just decides everything in a bigger country. And it might come down a little bit to luck, but yeah, I think people who are good at just general like quick assessments of where they are within a country, maybe with less actual written information, might benefit from this map a little bit more compared to a normal world map.
Well, let's see if Lunacy can keep his promotion hopes alive and if Pachetley can put himself in a good position to avoid relegation as we jump into this one. We'll get into round number one. And, well, this looks pretty familiar. I think we were in this should be the Philippines, right?
Well, you played through the sea, you
Yes.
would know.
Well, that sign that Lunacy is looking at definitely gives it away, and a
Yes.
much better version of that sign for both of them now. A full address, including little local town name. So I
Yeah.
don't know,
The
Calamity.
important part there is Bohol, which is an
Mm.
island in the Philippines, as Lunacy knows, and Paschtetli finds.
So they're both within, man, less than a minute, narrowing down what village exactly they are in. Now, this could be a little bit tricky in the sense that while everything is nicely labeled on the map, nothing is actually labeled in the view. So a lot
Yeah.
of directionality and just general shape will come into play, how well they can gather that information.
Yeah, if you're very knowledgeable about the Philippines and just generally know where the provinces are, etc., then usually if you find a sign like that, the difficult part isn't just figuring out where it is. The difficult part comes afterwards when you have to pinpoint it, because there's like the sort of biggest administrative division there, the island, is easy to figure out, but then you have like 3 divisions below that, and then you're just looking at, okay, where is this little town, if it can even be called a town, this little gathering of houses?
Oh, and we got a gas station and a few stores, so maybe it is a little bit closer to a town than you might normally see in the Philippines, but it's always very deceiving because you can feel like you're around lots of buildings, and then you find the location on the map and there's like no buildings or roads like that would point to this on the actual map, or vice versa. And so it can throw you off a little bit. There are a few points of interest, but I don't know how much you want to trust those.
Yeah, it can be pretty deceiving, especially in countries which are still sort of in a developmental stage, where things like just random shops or buildings like that can change year upon year. But they have both made their way to a bigger road, which should help them at least figure out a few possible locations from which the smaller road could go off. Paschtetli seems to struggle a lot with finding the right city on the right island. He is on the right island, and the city is right there on his screen, but he just hasn't been able to locate it, I suppose.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Lunacy is sort of zeroing in on the location. He's got a few intersections that it could possibly be. He's checked out. He's not too confident, so he'll keep looking for more information. I'm not sure what you could see other than like a very nice sign, but I think we've probably seen about as good of a sign as you're ever going to get in the Philippines.
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely didn't move past the intersection that they've made it to with the bigger road. I don't think there's any need for that. But you can, of course, get a bit of a better, better look at what the road continues like the main road. So you can judge, okay, are there any curves? Which part of this road could fit? But I feel like Lunacy's...
Yeah, Lunacy's in a similar area now, and Paschtetli has found the little village name. Yep, and we're in somewhere along that road, but about 30 seconds left. We're seeing why maybe this can be labeled as a hard world, right? Okay, yes, you've got the town, you've got the country, but can you find the intersection? Like, in 4.5 minutes, it looked to be a bit of a challenge for these two at least, but I mean, they shouldn't be dropping more than 100 points here, if that.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this won't be too much of a difference this round in particular. I think if they're not finding the exact place, which it doesn't look like it, then we're probably not going to see any perfect games.
Almost identically.
Kilometers off and 10 kilometers,
almost identically in their same spots where they guessed, and that separates them only by 5 points, 9,963 to 68. So Paschtetli does take a 5-point advantage, and it's kind of interesting the fact that he actually found the area last, but does get a slight lead in that.
Yeah, Lunacy was just very, very far off in the right area, and that just goes to show again what I mentioned earlier about the multitude of administrative divisions, where they both found the island fairly quickly. Then Lunacy found the right city relatively quickly. Paschtetli took a long time for that, but did get there in the end eventually. But you then go further down, then there's the right village, which neither of them happened to find in the end, and that's where their sort of round stopped and fell short.
Yeah. Well, let's get into round number 2 and see if they can do any better. And well, again, country, I think very obvious, Calamity, but good luck pinpointing this one.
Yeah, so how was your day? I think we've got a lot of time to talk about that in this round.
Yeah. If you ever wanted to know what the outskirts of Mongolia look like, well, here's your chance. You're going to get about 4 minutes of driving through the countryside. They both will head north. For those of you, I can
guarantee you, it doesn't matter.
For both of you any of those you who might be wondering, the car meta is pretty much the giveaway here. That covered back truck bed.
Yeah, if you're familiar with Mongolia and its landscapes, it is fairly obvious which road this is, but even then you do have it's not the shortest road, and you might be able to pinpoint it correctly, at least based on the right stretch of road, especially if you kind of go north and south a bit and find some curves. But yeah, it's definitely going to have to be all based purely on landscape and knowledge of Mongolia and, well, whatever potential curves you may see. There will not be any written information. I can pretty much guarantee you that.
Yeah, it is interesting that if you do spend the time to get used to Mongolia, there are like certain snow areas, very green areas in this kind of empty roads, this dry desert looking area, as well as, of course, the cities. So that can help you narrow down depending on when they actually took the footage to help you out with that. But I didn't know a whole lot. I just knew that we were in somewhere that looked a little brown on the map. That's where I ended up guessing. Yeah, very hard to pinpoint this one.
Yeah, they both seen a little signpost there that had some numbers on it. It might be kilometer markers in both directions, might be something else. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, they do look very similar to the Russian markings we saw last week, where those are distances to some city, whether or not that's useful or not.
Yeah, I think they just had a number on them. So, like, my first instinct would have been it's like the kilometers north towards the end of the road and the kilometers south towards the end of the road. Not sure whether that's correct at all or not, but that would have been my first idea.
Well, I was about to say that after 2.5 minutes, they're pretty close to each other and where they're guessing, but then Paschtetli moved his pin. He will move it slightly back again, but they are both looking at that kind of south, directly south of Ulaanbaatar. One of those roads kind of fitting the landscape and directionality of the road. It's very north-south with some small bends in it.
Yeah. And in this case, it would also help to know sort of where the coverage of Mongolia is and where it ends, especially, so that you don't go, for example, too far south because there's no coverage there along that road.
Yeah, that's one thing we haven't really talked about in this kind of hard world. A lot of these countries do have limited or kind of not like complete coverage, and so if you learn like, okay, these are the major roads that are covered, don't even look at this whole corner of the country, that when you get thrown into a country like Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan or something, you're like, oh, well, I can ignore this, search here, and with a shorter time limit, find everything you need. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put us in a town, Lunacy. Put us in the middle of somewhere. It's a better guess than nothing.
Yeah, for example, Paschtetli there is looking at a part of the road that isn't covered anymore. The coverage pretty much stops at Manargovi. There's a little bit of coverage sort of off the road that is south to that. But it's only like, I don't know, 10, 15 kilometers south of that, sort of east of the main road.
And Paschtetli, Lunacy, 109 kilometers away. Not a very bad guess at all. 4,628. And we're kind of seeing the effect of a world map here. 100 kilometers away and dropping just a few hundred points. Oh, and there's a dead end for Paschtetli. He'll guess, and he'll be 67 kilometers. Again, a little bit lucky, too far south, but in the end, still closer. 4,769 points for him. So both of them getting used to that road that seemed to fit. But then, of course, pinpointing going to be very tricky.
Yeah, and I was actually slightly wrong about the coverage where it ended. The part where Paschtetli guessed does just about still have coverage as well. It's not like maybe goes about like 5 kilometers further south from where he guessed, but it is still in there.
Okay, well, they're still not separated by a whole lot, as we'll jump into round number 3. 9,737 for Paschtetli, 9,591 for Lunacy, and, well, sit back and enjoy the beautiful scenery of, well, some Southeast Asian country.
Any other topics you want to talk about?
It's about the start of the rainy season in Kyoto, so
Mm.
It was hot and now it's getting hot and humid, which means it's all that much better.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's getting warmer here in Austria as well. We're thankfully it's getting a little bit colder in sort of the middle of next week again, but
there you go.
yesterday I think it was like 30 degrees, so just
Yeah,
too hot.
30, 31 every day, and the humidity is slowly climbing into the 90s. So it's about to be a little bit awful. There's probably your one look at something called civilization here. Part with a few people. Might be the
Yep,
only thing we see besides nature on
it's
this
definitely
road.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
This is though a pretty interesting road actually. They've got a motorbike as well, a person on it, so there are some people that traverse this. But some of you might remember, I don't know if we actually casted a game that included around here back in season 3, I think it was,
Yeah.
in Cambodia, because we definitely had some rounds along this road. And it is a very, very, well, a distinct road, I'm going to say, because it's essentially straight for about 50 kilometers or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to remember and get a feel of if you just go down it for a while and you're like, it's just straight. It doesn't change. Very fun to look at on the map as well.
We'll see if anybody remembers their Cambodia training from a couple seasons ago.
I think they were both here in that season. I think, yeah, Paschtetli definitely was,
Yeah,
but I think
Paschtetli was
Lunacy started in
4.
season. Did he start in season 4?
Might
Yeah,
have just
might
missed it.
be.
I think last season was his first season.
Yeah, you're right. So Lunacy has an excuse. Hasn't had the
Paschtetli
Cambodia
a
training.
little bit less. But yeah, again, 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes of heading down this road and just hoping you see something. Definitely, this could be a deciding round. I mean, Lunacy will head back and then realize that he can't go the other direction. So that was a bit of a, oh, yep, no. Oh, and then it kicked him back to the start again. There's
Yeah.
that glitch. So I don't think
Mm,
I'd even bother to, yeah, he's gonna undo his move, but that doesn't get him anywhere either. So that'll really put some salt in the wound. And he might just, if I was him, I'd probably just guess and get it over with because there's nothing for about 3 minutes. So
yeah, there's no reason to go that direction again because he's seen everything it has to
yeah,
offer. So essentially, you just try and maybe find a road that matches somewhere in Cambodia.
mhm.
There, I think if you've never seen the road before, you wouldn't necessarily assume that it's this unique.
Mhm.
So he's probably just going to guess somewhere in Cambodia. And yeah, Paschtetli does have his pin down somewhere. Didn't quite see where he put it because his map is also currently not showing it.
Yeah, if you look at like the countries, and I don't know, does Alloc assume that all countries in Southeast Asia are difficult, like Thailand, Vietnam? No, I don't think. Yeah,
A lot of
Cambodia.
them are.
Yeah, yeah, and there we go. A pretty not bad guess, just throwing a pin down in the middle of the country. Paschetli has his pin in a similar place, 4,433 for Lunacy. Paschetli will use every bit of his clock, but he will discover that an extra minute of traveling compared to Lunacy will give him nothing. He'll probably
Yep.
just let the time expire. And yeah, almost exactly the same again, 4,379. So 3 rounds, all of them being very close together for where they're guessing. And only a few hundred points again separating this time Lunacy coming out on top in this one, Calamity.
Yep. And also Lunacy, I was just going a bit further in the video. He's seen Paschtetli's score now at the bottom there. So he knows what he has to, or at least what the current situation is for him. But yeah, they're both still very, very close together. So it'll come down to the last 2 rounds here.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what the first of those last 2 rounds have. And, well, pretty clear what the country is.
Yeah, definitely. But that could be interesting as well, just because we've only got 2 rounds left, and well, with Israel here, we do have another kind of not too big country, And because the gap is pretty small between the two still, they've gone back into draw range, actually.
Yeah, less than 100 points.
Yeah, it is quite possible that we just see a very close game here if the last round is similarly not in too big of a country.
Yeah. One thing you can pick up on this is that there is plenty of Arabic, which tends to be more common kind of further away from the coast and kind of the West Bank, which does
Yeah, you
have
could all.
coverage.
Yeah, definitely. If you see more Arabic than you'd usually see in Israel, then you can probably assume you might be in Palestine.
Yeah. And
They
there is
use
a
the
dead
same.
end at the eastern
Yeah.
end of it, as Paschtetli will find out.
Lunacy was the one who hit the dead end to the east. But yeah,
No,
I mean,
think Paschtetli did too, but he kind of
okay.
he did.
But yeah,
Did he jump?
what do you mean jump?
Like, I don't know. He's got a sign that seems to be beyond where the dead end was, but he find a way around the dead end, or I'm not sure what
Maybe.
just happened here. I
I
definitely
wasn't
didn't
watching
see
his
that.
screen at the
Yeah,
time.
I definitely didn't see that sign when I was going up
I
and down.
did.
Yeah, I hit a dead end at both ends of the coverage, and went through. I literally, because we have 4.5 minutes, I think I drove that stretch of road like 3 times and didn't see anything like that. So maybe I just couldn't quite click on the right spot to get us through that weird coverage location, and that will give the city to Paschtetli.
A city that is somewhere off to that direction, at least.
Yeah,
Yep.
so to speak.
Could be fairly close. I think it's reasonable to assume the 4-digit ones are usually the sort of smallest designation of road, apart from, just named roads that are like this street. But so in that case, it's, I think, safe to assume that it's not too far away. It's just, it could be a matter of literally around the corner, or it's like 15 kilometers away.
Well, they'll probably be closer than they were in Cambodia then.
Yep.
But yeah. And there's another, I thought it looked like a dead end for Lunacy at the western side, which is what I experienced. So he's a little bit frustrated with that. With how far, I think, no, now Paschtetli is heading. I think just he must have done something. I don't want to go back and take a look at that, of how he might have gotten out of that dead end, or if it wasn't really a dead end and just a weird kind of kink in the coverage that you had to click enough to get through.
I'll go back and take a look at it for you.
Yeah, because I definitely was stuck at 2 dead ends and there was nothing, but he seems to have been able to avoid that. But we also know that Lunacy played after, so
he just clicked past it.
Okay, that must have been. I just didn't. Yeah, Lunacy as well as myself didn't try hard enough, I guess, to click past it. So
didn't look like Paschtetli tried particularly hard, but yes, he
just got lucky.
He just
I guess.
clicked past it.
Yeah.
You can see. I mean, the easy ones are the ones where you can literally see like your pointer just turns into like you get that little white square where you're like, even if it says, even if the arrow doesn't show up, it's pretty obvious that you can just continue clicking there. But there are like situations where it's really difficult and like such a thing doesn't show up and you have to like hit a specific pixel or something like that to continue forth. But this one wasn't nearly as difficult.
Yeah. And again, despite all that information, Lunacy is not that far away. He will even guess a little bit sooner. 4,913 exactly. Just right there. Didn't even drop 100 points. Didn't see any of those signs. Paschtetli, though, will earn himself a nice ace in this one. But again, not even a 100-point advantage with all those extra signs that he got because of just, you're in Palestine. There's a whole lot of places you can guess and be wrong.
The problem with that, though, is that he is now out of the draw range again. So it may have been a significant 87 points, even if it was just 80 points. But we have one more round that we'll see. So far, Paschtetli is in the winning position. And if he can just get more points than Lunacy in the last round, he'll have this one secured.
Well, let's see what the final round has in store for us. And, well, this could be interesting. Another easy country off the start. But again, pinpointing will be tricky. The landscape as well as the car will be very familiar from people from season 2.
Yep.
Another round in Kyrgyzstan.
Let me actually check. I don't actually know if Paschtetli was here in season 2.
So they both might not have been here from that.
He was not, as far as I can tell.
But
the country, again, should still be very obvious, but
Paschtetli heads right there.
It's not necessarily an easy location within the country. There are a few of these sort of valleys going through the middle of the mountains that have similar features. So you can definitely find the right one, as Lunacy immediately decides, might be that one. But yeah, it's not an easy round for sure. And there's probably also, I don't know if there'll be too much information regarding, like, written information about, like, telling you, hey, you're here.
Yeah, this little outpost was probably the best thing you're going to get. Could be a long way to any signs either way, but yeah, we can rule out most of the country. It's not snow in the coverage. It's not a major city. It's not in the flats or by the lake, and you're in a mountain pass, and there are, as you said, maybe a half dozen or so of those that it could be.
Yep.
And it looks like thought that point of interest might look familiar, but maybe he was just going too fast and I was inventing something.
It could be. And there's dead end.
Yep, dead end again. So yeah, now another 2. There's a cafe. So at least Paschtetli can look for a restaurant point of interest on the map rather than a hotel or something else.
Yeah, Lunacy's now realized how many of those valleys there are.
Yeah. And despite both of them not being here for season 2, Kyrgyzstan not unfamiliar to either one of them. Again, just which mountain pass is it? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, basically.
This is a sign that Paschtetli's currently looking at that might have some helpful information to him, but it might also not.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be helpful in the sense that it could tell him exactly where he is, but then it's a small town name or pass name, and you have to recognize that, and that could even be a little bit beyond. Both of them, though, surprisingly, just guessing in almost the same spot. It's really surprised me throughout their entire game is that, they obviously can't see each other when they play, but yet they have their instincts are almost to put their pins in the same spot. There we go, tourist complex.
Yep.
That could be very helpful if he can spot something like that on the map.
Yeah, that might well be a POI somewhere.
Less than a minute to go. And yeah, Lunacy just checking every mountain pass to see if he can find something that looks familiar.
Yep. That's also a road. It could be the one he's currently checking. He's been checking quite a lot of roads, some of which have coverage, some of which don't. But the one he checked right there, not this one doesn't.
That one does.
But yeah, that one doesn't look too different. I think it's a bit drier, but apart from that, that can also sometimes be deceiving just based on camera quality. But he's moved to it now, and with Paschtetli staying where he is,
yeah, that will be definitely enough to separate them if one of them is right or wrong to give them the win. Because even though they're in the same country, they only need a couple 100 points separating them. And guessing on oh my word, Paschtetli did figure that out. That sign must have been a very nice clue. 4,999. He will be happy with that. And Lunacy will be very mad. 3,783. I think he even had that location, at least that pass, way before Paschtetli did. Second guessed himself at the last second and moved that pin, and that'll cost him the game for sure, dropping close to 1,200 points on that round. But yeah, it came again. We saw it in our last cast, but all coming down to that final round in this map, Calamity.
Yeah, just a bit unfortunate there for Lunacy. He had his pin in that area for most of the game. It wouldn't have necessarily got him much considering Paschtetli was in the right place anyway. But let me just check if it would have brought him a bonus point
Another
real
1,000
quick.
points or so.
Yeah, it may well have done. It would have been just in that sort of, 900 more points would have brought him a bonus point. So would have definitely been possible if he had just stuck with that road.
Yeah, 24,115 for Paschtetli will get him the win. Again, pretty much coming down to Kyrgyzstan, finding that location. Very nice indeed. 22,724. Lunacy, who just couldn't quite figure out what mountain pass it was after 4 very nice rounds in that one. Well, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to check out more of these matches, we got plenty of them on the channel. So head over to some of those playlists and watch not only this season, but we had we got Cambodia, which was a map in the past. We have Kyrgyzstan, which was in the past as well. So you can definitely head over and check out a bunch of those rounds if you want to learn more about those countries' metas. And we will see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye.